Hello. Thank you for your graciousness and flexibility in allowing me to record this presentation and then send it around for your questions and comments since we started running out of time at the subcommittee meeting this morning. My name is Elise Cleva. I'm a Communications and Engagement Specialist in the Department of Community Planning, Housing, and Development. And I am the Comms and Engagement Specialist for the Housing Arlington Home Ownership Study. So I'm going to present the Comms and Engagement strategy that I have developed. And then, like I said, definitely am interested to hear feedback on it from the members of the subcommittee. When designing a comms and engagement strategy for anything, but in this case for a study, the first thing that my colleagues and I do is think about the goals of the goals of the study itself, and then go from there to how can sharing information and collecting and processing community feedback then support those larger goals of the study. So since we, meaning the Homeownership Subcommittee, reviewed the scope of work for this study about 3 months ago, back in November, I wanted to provide a quick refresh of the goals of the study, which include assessing opportunities that currently exist in Arlington for potential home buyers and for existing homeowners, applying a racial equity lens to data on the Arlington ownership housing market, ownership rates, and participation in our homeownership assistance programs. And Akiria did a really phenomenal job this morning in her analysis of applying the racial equity lens and looking at who is participating, who is benefiting, who is burdened, and who is missing from the programs that she administers. And when we talk about the racial equity lens, we're talking about asking those questions and then taking action based on the answers. So as the homeownership study progresses, we're hoping to work with the Arlington community to clarify what our goals and our community vision for our homeownership programs are. And then we'll return to looking at those specific programs, but in light of the community developed vision and goals. And the study will work to develop some recommendations for the programs and identify approaches to providing programmatic support to racial and ethnic groups for whom homeownership rates in Arlington are lowest. So we've talked about the study goals, and then the question becomes, how can the various functions and resources that we have at our disposal in terms of communication and engagement support the goals of the study? And the place to start is really making sure that we share the information we've gathered on homeownership trends in Arlington and the county's homeownership programs. So basically sharing the information from the barriers analysis that Russell put together and presented at the November and December meetings, and sharing information on our existing programs, and ultimately sharing feedback that we collect through the community roundtables with the community's members who are helping us develop a vision and goals for the homeownership programs. Another comms and engagement goal for this study is to just rigorously and consistently be asking who benefits, who is burdened, who's missing, those equity questions in regard not only to the home ownership landscape of Arlington County, but specifically in regard to our comms and engagement practices, and then using those answers to inform and adjust our comms and engagement practices as needed. And one of the point behind establishing equitable communication and engagement is that we end up with a two-way communication, more of a dialogue with the community members whose lives might eventually be affected by our homeownership programs. As the comms engagement person for this study, I'm working to ensure that input from community members will shape both the vision and goals and the ultimate program recommendations, which we will share, refine, and then share again and help people understand them. Okay, getting a little bit more concrete and specific, I identified some comms and engagement objectives that can really help meet the larger and more abstract goals. One is to really leverage the relationships that I and other staff members have with you all, the members of the Homeownership Subcommittee, and with a variety of other organizations that we're referring to using the kind of blanket term of community partners. And that sounds really good, but what does that actually mean? So when I talk about leveraging the relationships, one thing that I and my colleagues have already started doing is reaching out to a number of the community partner organizations as well as homeownership subcommittee members and getting recommendations and contact information for individuals to invite to participate in the upcoming roundtables and community meetings. And then we reach out to them personally and extend an invitation and answer any questions they may have about the roundtable or the meetings. And then the other way we're working with community partner organizations is simply trying to work with them to expand the reach of our Arlington County government communication channels. So that would be asking organizations to use their social media and their email newsletters, for example, to share information about the homeownership study. Like I mentioned before, the term community partners, I'm using it to cover a whole range of organizations to include, but not be limited to, nonprofits that are providing social services and leading social advocacy in our community, faith communities, school-based communities, so that would definitely include APS, but also we're going to be reaching out to the grad programs at Marymount University and some of the local chapters of fraternities and sororities that exist nationwide and that have like a DC Metro chapter. We're also going to be reaching out to employers in Arlington with the idea that they may have an interest in helping some of their employees live closer to an Arlington workplace. And we're going to be reaching out to labor unions and the Northern Virginia Labor Center as well to see about whether any of their members might sort of fit the target populations we're looking for in terms of roundtable outreach. Then to kind of to help people be aware of various opportunities and of the information that we're going to be discussing during the course of the study. We're also taking full advantage of the communication channels that are available to us as Arlington County government, which include our housing newsletter, our planning and building e-newsletter, and the Inside Arlington newsletter, which goes out every week on Thursdays and has a really wide circulation. We'll be using our social media, our relationships with RLNow and other local news media, and I am working with my communication peers in the libraries and DPR to publicize some of our work via the libraries and the community recreation centers. So to switch gears a little bit or actually kind of move down in this funnel that started with very large, more abstract goals, and to get even more concrete and specific about what we're planning to do and when. I'm going to talk a bit about our public engagement activities. We started in last fall with publishing the barriers analysis and convening the homeownership subcommittee. And as Akiria mentioned this morning, we are getting ready to embark on a series of roundtables. And I want to tell you a little bit about how we've gone about planning the roundtables. We started off planning for a series of 3 of them that we thought we would hold in March. And we were looking at the participants in our programs and the factors in the barriers analysis, showing things like the bulk of the inventory in Arlington, housing inventory in Arlington, that's ownership units under $500,000 being condos, and also being aware of the work that one of our subcommittee members, Regina, does in helping older adults stay in their homes. Taking all that into account, we decided that we wanted to have our 3 roundtables be with prospective and recent home buyers in Arlington, condo owners in Arlington, and older Arlington homeowners who want to remain in their homes or remain living in Arlington but face challenges in doing so. And as we started planning for those roundtables, we decided, we figured to have a productive but still intimate discussion. We would aim to have about 10 people in each and allot 2 hours for them. They're going to be facilitated by an external consultant, not by county staff. And we as county staff started brainstorming questions, and as we were coming up with questions that we want to ask in the roundtables, someone on our team actually said, would it help to talk to some realtors and lenders too? And we realized that having a conversation with realtors working in the Arlington market and mortgage lenders working in the Arlington homeownership market could actually help us as in terms of gathering information that we could then use to engage with older homeowners and prospective home buyers and condo owners. So that's kind of how we ended up scheduling 2 additional roundtables, one for realtors and one for mortgage lenders, and those are going to take place within the next 2 weeks of February. And the idea is that the 3 later roundtables will build on the 2 earlier ones, such that, for example, when we're holding the roundtable for maybe prospective home buyers, if the discussion sort of stalls out, we could allude to things that we learned from the realtors and mortgage brokers and say, we've heard that some lenders' clients experience like X, Y, or Z. Have any of you had that experience? And then get people that way to think about more things they want to share about their own lived experience. So after the 5 roundtables, we'll be working with the consultant to prepare a report on what we heard. And the goal is that the sharing of lived experiences in depth during the roundtables will complement the quantitative data that Russell and Akiria have compiled about homeownership in Arlington and about our programs. And our next step in public engagement will be sharing those 3 resources via a community webinar, and then holding 2 community meetings to start developing vision and goals for Arlington's homeownership assistance programs. Once we've come up with a draft vision and goals through those community meetings, we're going to have an online feedback opportunity to allow us to hear from even more people than simply the meeting attendees. And for both meeting attendees and people who take the online feedback form, we'll be asking them to fill out some simple demographic questions, and then looking at the results from that to determine who we're hearing from, and just as importantly, who we're not. And then in the June timeframe, we're going to hold several in-person pop-up style engagement opportunities, and we'll be using the demographic data we've collected up to that point to target when and where we should hold those pop-ups, so that they give us the best opportunity of hearing from people who haven't had a chance to contribute yet. Then as the study moves on, we're looking at having another community meeting in July, where we would go into more detail than the webinar did about our existing homeownership programs and have a chance to brainstorm on those programs with members of the community. Following the community brainstorm, staff and our consultant team will develop some draft program recommendations, and then in the fall we'll use online feedback, again complemented by in-person pop-up feedback opportunities, to allow the community to weigh in on the draft recommendations, which will then be refined by applying the community feedback and shared with the county board in December for county board members' buy-in and suggestions. So this concludes my presentation on the comms and engagement strategy. And I really look forward to answering questions and hearing your ideas and your input. I've created an online feedback form. It's very simple. There's a text box. You can type as much as you want in it. You can provide your name or not. You can leave it anonymous. But I'll be sharing the link to that to that online feedback form with you. And then as I start to get comments and questions coming in, I'm going to try to share out what was said and what was asked along with my responses via email. So it's it was the closest thing we could think of that would sort of recreate the experience of having a discussion during one of the subcommittee meetings without actually scheduling and holding another meeting. So thank you all, and I look forward to hearing from you.